This Veterans Day, I would like to issue a deep and meaningful thank you to all those who have served the United States in capacity in the military. Your service in all the things that we as a country have sent you to do in all parts of the world, guarding other shipping lanes, guarding American citizens abroad, and also working together with our allies in many various places in the conflicts, war zones. We want to thank you, those of you who have fought, those of you who have worked in support of those who are fighting. We thank all the armed forces who have served in the past, the veterans of the past, as well as those who are serving now. And I've said this before, but I think the greatest thing that we as citizens of the United States can do for our veterans, beyond the expected, the absolute bare minimum, which is take care of those who have been injured, wounded in the service. But what we can do is to bring our veterans from around the world, bring our soldiers home. Our soldiers, by and large, signed up to protect the United States, to protect true freedom and democracy here in our country. And this deploying of our troops around the world to protect every people on the face of the earth that happens to have oil is not something that should continue. And we all bear the combined responsibility for the things that we've asked our military to do, and how can we not lock arms with them and make sure that they have all that they need, and to work with them and to express our gratitude. It is well documented how important it is for those who have had to go into combat to find that when they re-enter society, they are welcomed. It is a way that we as a society share the burden, help them bear the burden of the combat and the things that they had to experience. And what happened after Vietnam is intolerable. That the veterans coming back from the Vietnam War were not accepted. They were ostracized. They were accused of things. We got politicians. We got politicians who have made decisions. We can accuse them all we want. And I think that Donald Trump is on the way to delivering an administration that is going to bring our troops home. And I think that this is the greatest thing that we really can do for our men and women serving abroad who have signed up to protect this country, to bring them back from defending every single people group out there that has resources that we want. The fact that we have soldiers guarding the oil fields in Syria right now, the fact that we have soldiers still in Iraq because Iraq has oil. We have soldiers defending Saudi Arabia because they have oil, and Bahrain and Qatar, and so many of these other countries where we have economic, financial interest in their resources. And this is something that just needs to stop. We need to stop being the world's policeman, and we've stopped being the world's policeman. We've become the world's security guard, the for-hire security guard. And that's not what most of the folks who signed up in the military have signed up for. And perhaps I'm wrong. I have not served in uniform myself. I spent several years along the northern border of Afghanistan and worked in Afghanistan somewhat. Almost went on another civilian humanitarian tour in Afghanistan for 2 more years, but that fell through after my team actually got taken hostage by the Taliban before I got there. But and believe me, having worked in those areas, I knew that if I was taken prisoner or if I was captured, taken hostage, it would have been the U.S. military that that would have potentially come and rescued me. And so I have a deep respect and heartfelt thanks to all those who have served, especially in special operations. Not that anyone is any less, but the special operations teams have such a high tempo of missions, and those who did convoy duties. And I mean, let's just be honest, some people within the military suffer, much, much more and have to sacrifice much, much more than other units in the military. And so for those who have served and have been in combat particularly, our hearts are with you. And I think that Trump gets it. I mean, on 9/11, he showed up at the site to hand out water and to make sure that all the first responders had what they need. And I think that I see within him not this desire to pull back from the world, but this understanding that we cannot ask so much of our military in return for so little for our country. To have people fighting in places that they themselves are asking the question, why are we here? Back during the Clinton days, we got involved in Somalia, where there isn't even any oil. And that was catastrophic, ending with what many people call the Black Hawk Down missions. We had the Mogadishu occupation there that lasted, that came to a close shortly thereafter, that catastrophe. Because we were deploying troops to Bosnia and places in Africa that nobody could find on a map. And when we got Republicans back in office, the Bush Jr. decided to start invading countries all over the map. He found some new countries on the map to invade and sent U.S. troops to them. This global war on terror had U.S. soldiers suddenly fighting insurgencies in so many different countries. And then when Barack Hussein Obama got into office, he started doing all these color revolutions and having the CIA operations and special forces trying to topple governments all over the place, and had us, for some reason, invading Syria, having military and paramilitary units in Libya. And those times need to come to an end. We need to bring our troops to protect our southern border, our northern border. And quite frankly, while we can be concerned and partner with other people to address issues around the world, we should really be, first and foremost, be protecting the United States. We should have our U.S. military on the southern border. We should have our military now more so than ever on our northern border with Canada. Those folks up there, they got some shifty fellows up there with Trudeau and his ilk. Got to keep an eye on them. We have a lot of people coming in from across our northern border now that we're hearing. And this is the fact that we're protecting every other country's borders and not our own is just patently insane. Now, as Trump is getting ready to start making some really important appointments, he's just started trickling out a few appointments here, but he has to pick a Secretary of Defense. And my prayer is that he picks a Secretary of Defense, not intervention. Because the last whole bunch of Secretary of Defenses have been secretaries of intervention, getting us into new conflicts around the world. During the Trump administration, last Trump administration, it was the first time in a very, very long time where we didn't have any new wars that got started, which was shocking to a lot of people. And let's just say a breath of fresh air. How about we work to close out and get out of the conflicts we're in instead of starting new ones. Even the Biden administration managed to start some new ones. Deeply disturbing. So we need a Secretary of Defense. And this appointment should be coming soon. The Secretary of Defense is going to actually appoint over their term. I'm not sure exactly when their 4-year terms come up, but is going to replace the Joint Chiefs of Staff as their terms come to an end. And so this is going to be huge. Who's going to be in charge of the Army? Who's going to be in charge of the Marine Corps? Who's going to be in charge of the different, even the Space Force, right? Even the Space Force, because they're technically military too. We have the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We got the Secretary of Defense. We got the dozens of undersecretaries of defense that need to be appointed. Because freedom is not free. And we need to pay that cost here. We need to be concerned not so much about Iraq and Afghanistan. We need to be concerned about the Pelosi's and the Newsoms and the Karens down the street. Because they will take away our rights. They will take away our freedoms. The officials at the EPA, the FDA, ICE, these people who are flagrantly violating American law in order to push their own agendas, and even sometimes the agendas of the previous president. This is deeply concerning, and we need to be taking the fight here. Now, it's a different kind of fight. We're not going door to door, dragging insurgents out of Afghan villages. But what we need to do is we need to be combing through decisions and decrees and registrars of rulings and going, where did that rule come from? This florist is not allowed to, have more than X number of thousands of dollars of inventory, or else they get classified as a new entity that has to pay a higher tax rate and have to carry X number of insurance. Where did that rule come from? And take it back to the bureaucrat who just thought it would be a good idea. Because those are the types of rules that enslave us, that make it so hard for us to run businesses. What happens in the natural course of free market that is now turning into more and more of a socialist market, you have people who succeed in a business, then they pay the bureaucrats, they pay politicians to write rules to make it so that nobody can actually get into the business behind them. They block out all of their potential competition by creating so many rules and regulations it's impossible for anyone to get into the business to compete with them. They use the deep state to protect their business interests and to make it so that no one else can start a business. Do you know how many rules and regulations you have to go through, how many hoops you have to go through to open up a barber shop? You have to be certified by the government in order to cut people's hair. That's insane. And people are like, well, maybe that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And all these rules and regulations to open a kitchen. I looked into a while back what it would take for me to make some kind of food product and sell it on Amazon. Wow, that was an education. And I was looking at doing it the easy way. This is like the cutout rules for using your home kitchen. It was inspections and all these different hoops to jump through. It was absolutely insane. It's like, how can anyone actually do this without hiring a lawyer to explain everything to them? There wasn't no Taliban stopping me from making products. It wasn't the Saddam Hussein supporters in Iraq that were holding me back from building a business. It was the Karens over at the Pennsylvania Department of health and blah, 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 and the federal Department of XYZ stopping me from just making a business. And I think that we've taken it so for granted that it is impossible to start a business yourself. All you can do is just get a job. I was astonished when I was walking through Spain. They had no chain restaurants at all. Like, you had to go to one of the bigger cities, and the only chain restaurants they had were like McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, Subway, all American chains. Every restaurant in every town, every village I came to was a mom and pop restaurant. Maybe they owned the hostel that it was attached to. Maybe they just had a standalone restaurant, but it was just, a family affair. They maybe hired one or two people to work with them or work for them, but it was a family-owned restaurant that was not a chain in any way, shape, or form. You don't see that here in the United States. I don't know what I'd speculate what the number is, like maybe, 80, 90% of the restaurants in the United States are all chains. They belong to other a chain of restaurants, whether it's a franchise or they have a brand. And I don't know that that's necessarily terrible, but I think it really points to the fact that nobody can start a restaurant from scratch. People who try to start restaurants from scratch basically end up almost always running into walls of regulation. The enemies of freedom are already here. And they're the people who are on a mission to make things safer and to take away your raw milk and to make it so that you can't buy certain things because they deem them to be unsafe. They want to protect you from freedom. And the battles are not going to be fought so much with weapons as they are going to be in the courtrooms and with exposing them to the light of day, all these insane rules and regulations that exist that need to be repealed. The red tape needs to be cut. And our troops need to come home and prepare for a major world war. If we need to fight a world war against a major power like China or Russia, then so be it. But they should know that our troops have been doing practically nothing else for the last 4 years than preparing for world war. Whereas right now our military is all over the world policing different areas of the world and doing all sorts of missions when we should be protecting the borders of the United States and preparing, training, exercises in our home bases for large-scale deployments. That's my opinion, but what do you guys think? Am I off base? I'm cautiously optimistic about the Trump administration, though, as these appointments come trickling out. I am watching them and I'm Googling them and trying to figure out who these people are and kind of what kind of bent. So far, like I said, cautiously optimistic that the people that seem to be getting hired might be good people. We'll see more as more come out. There's some questionable things in there for sure. The chief of staff being a lobbyist for Pfizer in the past is concerning, very concerning. One job does not make a person necessarily, but that's not something I'd like to see on the resume of people. And if there's a whole bunch of people with that type of stuff on their resume, I'm going to be very concerned. But hopefully, was that Susan Wiles, the chief of staff? So yeah, we got these appointments happening. Hoping that we're going to be picking an administration that's going to focus on peace, ending the foreign conflicts that we're involved with, and rebuild our arsenal of artillery shells, long-range missiles, guided missiles. We need to restock because we're running out of some of these very critical things. And can we rebuild them? if we get into a conflict with China, we may not be able to get the parts to rebuild these things. All right, friends, like I said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. For those of you who served, thank you so much for your service to this country. And we will continue to try to stand behind you and beside you as we go forward. All right, friends, until we see you guys again, if you want to check out another video from the channel, there's one right up here. Or otherwise, God bless you all, and happy Veterans Day.